It's about 6 o'clock on June 9th, 2020. Farragut Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting will now come to an order. You know, like that thing. Mayor Williams is attending a Tennessee Municipal League meeting in Nashville where he serves as second vice president, and therefore I will be running our meeting tonight. All Farragut Board of Mayor and Aldermen meetings are publicly noticed per Tennessee state law. Our meetings can be seen live on Charter Channel 193 and TDS Channel 3, as well as the Farragut YouTube channel and our website, www.townoffarragut.org/livestream. It will also be recorded and can be viewed later on the Town of Farragut YouTube channel, as well as Charter Channel 193 and TDS Channel 3. During the regular posted agenda, all comments or questions from Farragut residents will now be in person. If you are interested in speaking, we ask that you fill out a blue card with your name and address and agenda number and turn it into the town reporter prior to the start of the meeting. The mayor, or in his absence, the vice mayor, shall maintain and control the meeting to provide a professional, objective environment. So please read the posted comment protocol and understand that there will be a 5-minute limit for each speaker, and please stay on topic as at the end of tonight's business meeting, there will be some time reserved for other public comment under the citizen comment agenda. The meeting called to order. We will start the night with a silent prayer, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to our country's flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will now ask the town recorder to please take attendance roll call for quorum.
Alderman Meyer. Here. Alderman Pinchuk.
Here.
Alderman Pavlin.
Here.
And Mayor Williams is absent.
Thank you, Allison. Approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda? I will take a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
First and second, a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
I like that they're saying aye.
Are we saying aye or yes?
He likes to
Is that
say
me?
yes. I like to
know,
say
like
aye. Tonight, we're saying aye.
Sounds so formal.
Let the record show that the June 9th, 2022 agenda has been approved. Approval of the minutes. Any amendments to the minutes?
No, ma'am.
With none, I will now ask for a motion to approve the May 26, 2020 minutes as presented.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Let the record show that the May 26, 2022 minutes have been approved and will be recorded as the official minutes of that meeting. I have nothing to report under Mayor's report, but will yield to our town administrator, who has a special announcement to make.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Pavlin. It's not very often that you get an opportunity to celebrate great things that happen in your community and happen with your staff and different individuals as part of your staff. But it really takes a wonderful team in order to get so much accomplished for our town. Just last week, we had our Public Works Director, Bud McKelvey, celebrate his 35th anniversary with the town of Farragut. Bud is our longest-serving member of our team. And we just wanted to have a special celebration video that we prepared for him that we wanted to present with him tonight. So, Bud, congratulations, and this is just for you.
Thank you. He sounds convinced.
I may want to wait on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bud, congratulations on your work anniversary. We've enjoyed working with you, and hopefully there'll be many years to come. Thank you.
Mr. McKelvey, how did you do it? Bud always says how to say hello when he comes in. 35 years. Congratulations, and thank you very much for all your service to the town.
Congratulations, Bud. Congratulations, Bud, on 35 years. It's been fun, and it's not been so fun. I hope the best, but I hope just a few more years. Take care. Congratulations, Bud.
Congratulations, guys. I'm retired. 35 years.
Congratulations, bud. You made it 35 years. Keep up the good work.
But it has been a joy to work with you all these years, and I really appreciate your commitment to the town and how well you work with others. And we all love you and appreciate all the hard work you do for our community. Thanks, bud. So, Bud, that was a kind way for us to use Snapchat in a funny way to say thank you for all of your service. And I actually do have something special to give you if you come down for your 35th anniversary.
And you tricked me to get me here. You did a fine job.
Thank you, Bud, for everything.
You gotta go to the podium.
Enough time over here. It's not goodbye, that's for dang sure. I told David that it's not going to be goodbye till I pay back everybody. So, no, it's been fun. David asked me, he took me to lunch. Last week he said, Bud, do you want to go to lunch? You've been here 12 years, you've never asked me to lunch. What have I done now? So, but he took me to lunch the other day on my anniversary, which was June 1st. But like I told him, I've seen everything from the baby grow up to the adult, throughout the town. And I was referring to trees and various different things because a lot of this stuff, we were in on it on the very, very beginning. So it was, it's been fun, and it still is fun every single day. So, but.
Well, thanks, Bud, for all your service. We really do appreciate it.
All right,
You do
thank
a great
you.
job.
Let me
Thanks.
just say real quick, I really appreciate the assistance you give me willingly when residents call and they have issues. You're ready to meet me out there, and you take down trees that they didn't even complain about that were dead. And so I really appreciate all that you do to help us, help our residents. We can't be everywhere, so when they call and they need help, you guys, all of you, have been so responsive, and so I really appreciate. You guys are fabulous. They're a great group of guys. The funnest part, I think, of serving as an alderman is the Christmas party, the white elephant.
Oh, my
Just because we get to hang out with, that's a fun group of guys you have, and it's just hilarious to watch them all interact. So, a real treasure.
Thanks.
We appreciate it.
And I'm just me. The work actually gets done by the guys. That's who needs all the credit. I just say, guys, we need to do this, this, and this. They go and take care of it. So David said, you got to go do this and this and this, and say, guys, okay. But just delegate it out. So the guys are the one that do all the work. So
They do a great
but
job.
I'm often getting compliments about how well the town looks, and that's you and your staff. And I know it starts at the top and goes down to the rest of your people. So, I mean, you set high goals, and we really do appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
High standards, I should say.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Bud.
All right. Thank you all.
Right. Do any of the other aldermen have anything during mayor's report to report?
I think we'll probably cover it in the coming weeks, but
Yeah.
some great performances at Farragut with some state titles for
Yeah.
softball and baseball and tennis. So I'm sure we'll cover that soon.
And we had, during graduation, he covered it, they have, how many? 36 merit scholars? And half of them came from the Farragut High School. So
Half
a
of
lot.
Knox counties
Yeah.
came from, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
amazing.
a lot to celebrate in Farragut, so.
Will that be at our next meeting?
Yes.
That is the plan.
That's the
That is the
plan.
plan.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to ordinances. We have 3 ordinances on tonight's agenda for review and public hearing, with the first 2 on second reading. The first one is Ordinance 22-10, an ordinance to amend the Farragut Municipal Code, Chapter 14, Nuisances and Property Maintenance, Article 4, Lot Clearing, 14-138, Notice to Property Owner, Town of Farragut Applicant.
Good evening. I'm Mark Shipley. I'll present this and one of the other ordinances later on. It's hard to follow Bud, so I'll do my best. He's definitely a character. So this is really just to clean up a clerical error in our property maintenance code that Ollie brought to y'all's attention 2 weeks ago. There's just a section that's referenced improperly, and it's affecting our ability to enforce the lot clearing aspect of this ordinance because we have to make sure that we cite the proper section when we take it to court. So that's all this ordinance is doing. The ordinance 22-10 was approved on first reading. There haven't been any changes to it since first reading, and staff recommends approval of ordinance 22-10 on second reading.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval of ordinance 22-10 on second reading.
Second. Get it? All right.
Allison, do we have any resident comments on this?
No, ma'am.
All right. Does anyone have any discussion? Discussion closed. I will ask for a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Burnett.
Yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Yes.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Yes.
Alderman Poplin.
Yes. Let the record show that ordinance 22-10 has been approved on second reading. Number 2, ordinance 22-11, an ordinance to amend the capital investment fund budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget passed by ordinance 21-13.
Yes, ma'am, there are no changes from the first reading, and just to summarize, the CIP will be amended by an increase of $17,538. That is for a $250,000 increase to Camel Station Road and I-40 improvements, and $67,538 for McPhee Park Phase 3. And the reason of the difference in those two is we're just reallocating some funds from the land acquisition expense line item to the Camel Station project. And the state street aid will increase an amount of $132,344. This increase is due to the increased cost of the annual resurfacing program. And the motion is to approve ordinance 22-11 on second and final reading.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval of ordinance 22-11 on second reading.
Second.
Do we have any resident comments?
Yes, ma'am. We have one, and it's Adam Atherton.
You've read the protocol, Mr. Atherton?
What's that?
You've read the protocol? You're familiar with the
I'm familiar
protocol?
with it, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Your name and address, please,
Yep.
for the record, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Adam Atherton, 801 Andover, in the great town of Farragut. Good evening. Before addressing the lane width and turning lane concerns at Kingston Pike and Campbell Station intersection, I want to show appreciation for a few things. First, and these are relevant to the conversation. First, you may remember the long and circuitous discussion about the addition of a sidewalk along Smith Road, neighboring Andover Place HOA. I know Louise and David, you remember that. I mean, there were many conversations. It took tens of meetings and approximately 2 years to work out the details of that sidewalk. I don't know what is actually considered significant public outreach, but it looked like significant public outreach to me. The plan was built, the outcome is well appreciated, and I do appreciate the BOMA's and the staff's patience in that process. I think it's a great outcome. Second, I appreciate BOMA's tacit acknowledgement of your contribution to the traffic mess in Farragut. Numerous suboptimal decisions have been made or planned, and BOMA at least appears to be interested in addressing this. I encourage BOMA to continue to address the significant traffic issues in town. It's going to require significant efforts between BOMA, staff, consultants, and residents to get this right. I do have a concern. My expectations may be too high given the experience with the Andover Place sidewalk, which I think was a tremendous, laborious but tremendous effort. But it appears to me that the BOMA got ahead of itself with the decision to fund reducing lane width and adding additional left turn lanes at the Kingston Pike and Campbell Station intersection. It may be a good idea, But I doubt it's the ideal solution because of the lack of input from town of Farragut residences and businesses. Where was the opportunity provided for town of Farragut residences and businesses to provide comments on a now funded proposal? I don't know. I am curious about the answer. I assume BOMA is aware of the loud and broad concerns about the plan to reduce lane widths at the I-40 overpass at Campbell Station. Naturally, people are concerned with safety because their car would be 2 feet closer to other cars and a concrete buttress on each side. Is BOMA aware of the NACTO requirement of minimum lane widths of 11 feet to account for truck turning radiuses? I'm curious if you're aware of this. That would apply to the Kingston Pike and Campbell Station intersection as well. So, a couple questions, and I'll give Allison a copy of this. Did BOMA fund new additional turn lanes without public having a chance to be part of the discussion? Where was the opportunity provided for town of Farragut residents and businesses to provide comments on the proposal for lane width and turning lane changes at Kingston Pike and Campbell Station intersection? And just in closing, just comment I'm adding to this. I just want transparency. It just seems like sometimes BOMA is in a big hurry, and they may be great ideas, but I think that there needs to be concerted effort, like a sidewalk, to really get resident and business, Farragut businesses' input. And it seems sometimes that good work isn't done. Nevertheless, sometimes it is, as I noted. So I'll give a copy of this to Allison. Thank you for your time.
Okay. I have a motion and a second for that, correct?
Yes.
Do I have any, and no additional comments, just
No,
that
ma'am.
one? Do I have any comments from the board,
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. We've been getting an awful lot of complaints about traffic backing up on Campbell Station Road because of how hard it is to get underneath the interstate heading north to Hardin Valley or trying to get on westbound interstate. And there is a fix coming, we hope, in the next 5-10 years with a new interchange. But we had to come up with something now, and we looked at a lot of different alternatives, and there wasn't much we can do. It's just so narrow, and we had to get a second turn lane. That was what's important. So,
Mr. Atherton,
Can I-
your comments are, well, if you have additional comments, you can actually bring them at the public forum or.
it in context, what are you saying?
Okay, because I have additional comments as well.
Okay.
So
I could wait till the end if you'd like.
that would be wonderful.
I really don't want to go any further in that,
Okay.
but I just simply, it's a short-term fix with hopefully a long-term fix coming down the road.
I will add to this, because there has been made a lot about the 10-foot lane. I'm not sure that many people realize that if you go down Kingston Pike, which is a state highway, in the, what's the neighborhood? Sequoia Hills area, it's about 1.75 miles. The travel lanes are anywhere between 9.5 and 10 feet for about 1.75 miles. No divided. It's, and they get about 24,000 average daily trip. 22,000, don't mark me on that. I read somewhere between 22 and 24,000 average daily trips a day. That is a state highway, so, and designed by TDOT professionals. TDOT follows AASHTO standards as well as we follow AASHTO standards. They are not standards, they are guidelines. There is room in there for engineering judgment, which happens in just about any project you see because of the context. One road is not the same thing as another road, is not the same thing as another road. Given the limited opportunities we have there with the bridges, and seeing that there was space there, we worked with with our engineers to work through this, and of course, we're going through the design process to address your concerns of accommodating turning vehicles, to accommodate bigger trucks, to accommodate, because we know what's going to be there is going to be small vehicles up to 18-wheelers. And what gets designed there has to be able to handle all of that. So certainly professionals are, that's what we're working through right now is the design and finishing that design and getting it constructed. The constraints of that were kind of built into the mix when they decided to put the bridge in the way they did. So we kind of have to work with what we have. I think that's all I have to say. That I will say that this was discussed in publicly noticed meetings. It was on the agenda. There's drawings. There's an opportunity for people to come in and give their input. And so we are transparent. We can't go knocking on the door and letting everybody know, okay, this might be something you're concerned about. People can go in and sign up to have, when we have a new agenda posted, they can sign up. It will send them an email, hey, new agendas are posted. You can go and look at it, review it. About a week before the agenda, before we meet, the full agenda is there, all of the documents that are needed. If you have questions, you can reach out to our staff, you can reach out to the elected officials, or you can wait for the meeting. It's all there. With regard to the sidewalk project, I was directly involved with that. That was something that we almost ended up just putting a sidewalk in the right-of-way and would have had to widen Smith Road to do it. And it meant something to me not to see that happen because it didn't think that would be good for Andover. So Andover had some very, this is their neighborhood property, which is why it was slow walked. It was about trying to figure out, okay, do we put in a 8-foot trail or a 5-foot sidewalk? Do we put it by the street? Do we put it in the HOA property? Are we going to just have it in the HOA property all the way, or are we going to have the HOA property and bring it into the right-of-way? So there was a lot of discussion. They wanted symmetry. This is a much more, there was a lot more moving parts in that as far as decisions and choices and how they wanted it to see its shape. A road project is much more constrained in what we can and can't do. And if we could not fit that in and make it safe, we wouldn't be doing it. We would not have, our engineers would not suggest something that they thought was unsafe. So I hope that brings some clarity to that particular project. So do we have any other comments from the board?
The only thing I'd advise Mayor is I'd love Brandon to get up a little bit at the end and talk to some of the actual facts of what has been done behind the scenes to get to the point where we're at today. This is by no means a board jammed, big hurry, getting ahead of ourselves. There is a ton of work that went in that is not an opinion-based thing, but it's a fact-based thing based on engineering-wise what will work. You know, I think one of the misconceptions is we're narrowing lanes under the interstate. That's not happening. The lane widths aren't changing under the interstate. And so, you know, I had these same questions. I called David and I was like, what the heck? Am I going to be driving like this and start clipping mirrors? And when you understand, when you hear more, hopefully from Brandon a little later, about what went into it, what came out of it, and the amount of engineers that had input into it, I think it will make you feel a lot more comfortable, or at least it did for myself.
Well, Brandon, you may as well, this is the time to discuss it before we vote on it. So I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
So, I'm Brandon Tupper, the Assistant Town Engineer. No issue, I can address some of the concerns, definitely. Alderman Burnett, you made a good point. So currently, actually underneath the bridge itself, it's 10-foot 6 lanes for the through lane. So that's what's underneath there. There's about 44 feet of space underneath that bridge. So the through lanes are already about 10-foot 6 right now. What we'll be putting back will be 10-foot 6 lanes also underneath the bridge. The extra lane will only be to the south side of the bridge, and what we're actually doing there is widening 8 to 10 feet and taking the current 13-foot turn lane and turning it into two 11-foot turn lanes. So that's how we're getting the additional lane, by widening to the south of the bridge, and the turn lane will be 11 foot. So we are aware of that. We did want to make sure we had 11 foot on the turn lane. The only thing that is really narrowing is the through lanes at the actual intersection will be 10 foot, roughly 10 foot, at minimum 10 foot. When we get out there and actually perform the project, we're going to get every inch of space out there that we can. That's for sure, you know. But we will have minimum 10 foot at the intersection for the through lanes and 11 foot on the turn lane. So
Thank you for that clarity. I was not aware of that. Thank you.
Absolutely. You talked a little bit about the background of the project. So this kind of came up as a concept about 6-8 months ago. And what we, as Alderman Pinchot said, you know, obviously everybody's experienced the backup that happens on that northbound movement, and also the growth on the north side, north of town, you know, along North Campbell Station Road there. So we started looking at this 6 to 8 months ago. We came up with a few concepts here at the staff level with myself and Daryl Smith, and we do what we call a qualifications-based selection of consultants. And we have on-call traffic engineering consultants. In this case, we use Canon and Canon. So after the time that we developed the concept at the staff level, that's when we implemented a contract and brought that contract to the board to actually go into project development. So what the Cannon did, actually went onto the site there, did an actual survey, got hard dimensions of exactly what the lanes were, how much room we had to work with, how much could it actually be widened, and could the project be done safely. At that time, we weren't sure. And there was a potential that they could have came back and said, no, we just can't do it, there's not enough room. But we wanted to explore it because we wanted to, you know, do something there. They did come back, and that was their recommendation, is what ended up as the final design, the 10'6" for the through lanes, 10 foot at the intersection, and 11 foot turn lane. So that's kind of the background to the project. I'm trying to think what else. Another thing for note, since this does involve the ramps and the interstate, TDOT was part of the process. So again, we brought the concept to TDOT Region 1 traffic engineers way back, 6-8 months ago, and said, is this something you would entertain? And they agreed that they would after we finalized design. It went back to them for comment. They had some comment. We incorporated it and then moved forward with the project. So we've had engineers at the staff level, engineers at the consultant level, engineers at the TDOT level have all reviewed and bought in on the project. We all feel comfortable moving forward with it. I think it will alleviate the traffic, and it should feel similar to as far as the lane widths and everything that it does now.
Thank you, Brandon.
I have a
That's
couple
helpful.
questions, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
So Brandon, tell me about your background.
I'm sorry?
What's your background? What's your education? What certifications do you have?
I have a bachelor's degree of civil engineering from the University of Kentucky, and I'm a professional engineer in the state of Tennessee as well as Virginia and South Carolina.
And don't you have to have a license in the state of Tennessee to be able to, I guess, practice engineering?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. And can you remind me of Daryl's qualifications?
Daryl's also a PE licensed in the state of Tennessee.
Okay, okay. So does anybody on the board have any questions about safety based on the fact that we have town staff who are obviously very much educated and licensed by the state of Tennessee to practice engineering, plus we have TDOT reviewing the project, correct? And I think there was another layer.
Correct. The consultant, so
Consulting.
they are professional
Yes. And
engineers.
So can you share with me the qualifications of that consulting firm?
Absolutely. So Canon and Canon is probably the biggest player in town when it comes to traffic engineering. They've done a lot of projects for the town. I know that the specific engineer on this project was Alan Childers, and I believe he has somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 years of engineering experience, specifically in traffic engineering.
And have you, Brandon, ever come across a project here in the town of Farragut that you would deem as not safe when it comes to traffic design?
No, sir.
Are you familiar with any?
No, and like I said,
project?
there's a few concepts that, that we put forward, and we didn't feel comfortable moving with them, but this one we did.
Yeah, okay. No further questions, thank you.
I've got a question. Do you have any idea what the speed limit is on Kingston Pike in the Sequoia Hills area?
40 miles per hour.
40? What do you think the average speed of the cars going underneath interstate it would be?
I'd be guessing on that one. I'm not sure. It just depends.
Do you include Catholic high school kids in that count? who live in Farragut and commute.
My
Sorry.
point is, I think cars are going to be moving a lot slower through there because there's 2 traffic lights. They're not going to be going 40 miles an hour, I don't believe. So
Well, I mean, and this meets TDOT standards. And, this kind of reminds me of the Union Road design. Originally, the Union Road was going to be another Everett Road, which has 12-foot wide lanes, is very flat.
And
so,
40 mile per hour
and 40
design.
miles an hour. And so I've never been a proponent of 12-foot wide lanes unless TDOT requires it. I've always been a proponent of 10-foot wide lanes. So I have absolutely no problem with following the TDOT standard in this project, particularly, as you pointed out, Alderman Pinchuk, the traffic will be going much slower than probably the traffic on Kingston Pike.
Well, and AASHTO standards, again, allow for flexibility. They're not written in stone standards. They're guidelines for this very reason, because different circumstances require, and it's called, that's where Union Road came from, was a context-sensitive solution.
Oh, yeah,
We were looking at a thoroughfare that was kind of tight, and a 30-mile-per-hour design speed was certainly more effective and less impactful on the entire corridor. Plus, a 30-mile-per-hour design speed tended to, you think, will slow down people, more walkable. We're going to have a pedestrian bike facility out there, and that's kind of the goal. So looking at lessons learned, Everett Road, I would love to have another foot from either side to
I would
maybe have a
too.
wider green space.
I would take 2.
Or, yeah, so so we're starting to learn our lessons and look at things differently. Virtue Road, originally, we wanted it to be 12-foot lanes, and we dialed it back to 11-foot lanes. It made sense, and you go out and you look at Virtue Road, and it's a beautiful road, but it's a safer road. We brought it up over the bridge. We took that curve out, and it's very effective for making it a safer place. And the roundabout we got because of Brookmere coming in, and they paid for that, and it's a much safer road than it was previous. But every road project we do takes that kind of, you have to look at it, and a lot of that is done behind the scenes before it ever comes to us, because they have to have an understanding of the design that goes into it before they.
Good points. Good
And
points.
thank you for all your work on this project, really. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Can I call the question just so we can vote?
Okay, call the question.
Speak into your microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry, I put that up.
Let's move that.
You-
Sorry.
So,
I call the
Alderman Myers
question.
called the question. Well, don't call the question,
Oh,
because I'm
can we
just
just
going to.
vote?
Then we have to vote on the call and the question.
Oh, Lordy, then just
Can you
vote.
withdraw that?
I'll withdraw it and let's just
Thank
vote.
you. All those in favor? Do I have to do I'll do it, I'm sorry. Do a roll call vote.
Meyer.
Yes.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Yes.
Where are we? Let the record show that ordinance 22-11 has been approved on the second reading. The next ordinance is on first reading. It's ordinance 22-08, an ordinance on first reading to amend the Farragut zoning map to rezone a portion .82 acres of parcel 069, tax map 151, 13013, Kingston Pike from general commercial district to rural single-family residential. JMB FP Investment Company applicant.
This property is where the fast-paced urgent care has recently completed construction in the west part of town, Kingston Pike. The property is actually fronts on Kingston Pike and Fleener Road, and it's 1.82 acres. The walk-in clinic doesn't need the full parcel, so they're subdividing off north .82 portion that fronts on Fleener Road, and, would be selling that to have the construction of a single-family home. So that's why they're requesting to rezone it from C1 to R1. Basically, when we talked about this with the Planning Commission, staff noted that through this section of town, the properties that front on Kingston Pike are zoned commercial all the way back to Fleener Road. And Fleener Road, of course, I'm sure everyone's been on that road, is not really in a condition where it can accommodate any kind of non-residential traffic, really. So really, their request is to downzone the property from commercial to rural residential, which is actually kind of what the surrounding plan of development is that fronts on Fleener in that general area. So the rezoning request itself is consistent with what's actually built along Fleener Road. In terms of the future land use map, because we always look at that when we review rezoning requests, through that section of town, those commercial properties were specified on the north end as medium-density residential. And that was one of the several medium-density residential areas in the town that we saw maybe an opportunity to provide a transition from commercial to lower-density residential. And that's something that when we were talking with the Planning Commission, it probably needs to be revisited now that we've had some higher density developments occur in the town, and we've kind of addressed a lot of the need for housing variety that was identified in our plan. So maybe that whole section through there might need to be re-looked at in the near future to maybe bring it more in line with the existing infrastructure and the existing plan of development along Fleener Road. So when the Planning Commission did review this rezoning request at their meeting in April 21st, they did unanimously recommend approval of this rezoning, and the staff does recommend approval of Ordinance 22-08 on first reading.
I'd like to move to approve.
Okay, do I have any resident comments on this one?
No.
Any discussion? Alderman Meyer?
So I'm so proud of the track record that this Board of Mayor and Aldermen have had over the past 4 years in regularly looking for ways to approve zoning that will have the most minimal impact to residents around the project. At the same time, looking at the project within the context of the properties around it. I wholeheartedly support moving any commercially zoned property to residential simply because of the impact on density, the impact on the roads and whatnot. In fact, I don't think we've ever, at least in these 4 years, ever moved or approved any zoning from residential to commercial. It's all been low impact. So we've I think moved some farms to residential because economically those farms, they can no longer make money off the farm, so we had to do something. But I believe that this project is very consistent with the history that this BOMA's had for 4 years, with constantly, regularly, and continually approving low impact, low density development. That's all I have.
Alderman Pinchuk, do you have anything?
It just makes good sense to me. I agree with it.
Yeah.
Same.
I will add to your statement that sometimes the opportunity to reduce the impact is sometimes is the best thing we get, and this is a no-brainer to me. But when you're talking about it, we just rezoned a property from commercial to neighborhood convenience commercial on Watt Road, and it reduced the potential traffic impact by about tenfold, from maybe 6,000 to 8,000 average daily trips down to 600 to 800. So that was, could have been used commercial, and they downzoned it. The Boyd Station property was originally zoned for residential before the town was founded, and it was R2, and they requested R1 OSMR, and that reduced the density from what they could have originally had, but it gave them flexibility and saved 35% open space. So it was going to build out residentially, and we were able to reduce that. These are the kinds of things, and the mixed-use town center, as much as it gets beat up, that Biddle property was zoned for commercial use, and rezoning it to a mixed-use town center reduced the traffic impact from what it could have been. And
Can I add, it had no impact to schools?
which had
Material.
The what?
The town center.
Well, it has very little impact.
No
The
material.
apartments will have some impact, but not as many students come out of the apartments as they do single-family detached. So with that, I have a motion and a second. I'm just going to have a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Yes.
Alderman Bovlin.
Yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Yes.
The records show that ordinance 22-08 has been approved on the first reading. We have 2 business items on tonight's agenda to review and consider. Approval of the fiscal year '23 committee appointments.
Yes, ma'am. My plan is to just go through each committee and the appointments presented and then vote on it from there.
That sounds great.
All right, so the Art and Beautification of Marty Rogers, T.C. Williams, Joyce Moran, Lisa Hall, Wendy Stiles, Dora Taggart, and Michelle Morrow. Board of Zoning Appeals is John Hoffman. Museum Advisory Board, Bill Battle, Lisa Hall, Joyce Moran, and Beverly Hammond. And the Tourism Committee is Michael Bellamy, Candace Viox, Bill McAdams, and Debbie Canopika. And the Parks and Athletics Council is Bill McAdams, Debbie Pinchuk, Jeff Devlin, Jonathan Zural, and the alternate is Derek Wright. The Stormwater Advisory Committee is Valerie McFall as the water quality, Eric McKimsey and Elizabeth Agee. And the Visual Resources Review Board is Brittany Moore and Derek Wright.
Can I get a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Do we have any resident comments?
No, ma'am.
Do we have any discussion? Without no discussion, I will now ask those all in favor of approval of recommendations, please say so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show that the committee appointments have been approved. All right, the next thing on the agenda is approval of the traffic calming on Midhurst Drive and Red Mill Lane in the Kingsgate subdivision.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you,
As
Brian.
you introduced, this is, I'll be presenting the approval of traffic calming on Midhurst Drive and Red Mill Lane in the Kingsgate subdivision. So a little bit of background and introduction to this. So back in February of 2021, some residents of the Kingsgate subdivision submitted what's called a traffic calming application, which is the first step to kick off our traffic calming policy for an installation. The residents lived right at the intersection of where Red Mill and Midhurst actually come together, and what they reported was excessive speeding and also a few wrecks, specifically people running off the road into their yards, showed some photos and things like that. So at the staff level, we accepted the application and met with the residents on site to form what we call the traffic team, which will be the individuals that go together or work together to actually develop the proposed traffic calming. What we found was the site was eligible based off of the classification of the roadway and the field conditions. So we moved it to the next step of the application. The next step is actually doing a speed study. So we actually go out, put the pneumatic hoses, and we conducted several speed studies throughout the subdivision, specifically on Red Mill and Midhurst. If you look in the packet tonight, you can see what the 85th percentile speeds were found to be. The 85th percentile speed, and specifically 10 miles an hour over the posted speed limit, is what we use as the threshold whether or not an application would be eligible for traffic calming. It's generally used because if that number exceeds 10 miles an hour over the posted speed limit, it's pretty excessive speeding. Again, think about it, at least 15% of the drivers are going 10 miles an hour more over the speed limit. As you can see, all the locations that we tested were eligible with some speeds upwards of 43 miles per hour. Based off of the speed study, the application was eligible to move to the next step, which is a public meeting. We conducted a public meeting with the residents of the Kingsgate subdivision. We had a great meeting, actually. 30 residents came out to it, and we had many residents that were there in support of it and some that were there and not in support of it. We had, like I said, great dialogue back and forth on that. Ultimately, there was a few action items out of there. One specifically was they wanted to do a secondary follow-up speed study after Virtue Road was open. At this time, Virtue Road was still closed under construction. The residents felt that some of it might be cut-through traffic that was causing the speeding, so we agreed that we would hold the application as far as going for approval until after Virtue was open and we could conduct some more studies. We can report that we've conducted those studies and the speeding essentially did not change, and it remained eligible. So therefore, we moved to the next step of the application, which is actually a vote of the affected residents. Allison, if you pull up the affected area map, please. I think it's, yes. So what we do is we mail a ballot out to each one of the residences. Each residence gets one vote, whether they approve of traffic calming installation or not. The area in the green, I'm sorry, the whole area outlined there is the affected area. Everybody in the affected area gets a vote, and the policy requires at least 50% of the affected area approve it. The area that's within the red is what we call the speed zone. So these are the residents that are specifically adjacent to the proposed traffic calming installations, and that would actually be in front of their homes or near their homes. And for that, we require a 65% approval. We received 105 ballots back, and we can report that 70% of the affected area voted yes to have the traffic calming installed, and 83% of the speed zone. So that passed both thresholds and moved to the next step in the traffic calming policy.
Did they vote where or just to approve somewhere?
Absolutely. So the packet, very similar to what's in tonight's handout, was sent with the ballot. It included.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and I can touch on that. You know, some of the feedback was they want to know what type of speed bumps are going in and where are they going in and everything. So those were all details that we kind of hashed out during the public meeting. And then these photos and the maps were included with the ballots. The next step in the process is to present it to the Planning Commission. That was presented back on, on May 19th, 2022. We presented this to the Planning Commission for their recommendation. Again, had a great meeting with the Planning Commission, many questions. They had very good questions, technical about the process, but overall they voted unanimously to approve it. We had one resident come to the meeting and they spoke in favor of the traffic calming, as well as asked for additional locations be looked at, both on Red Mill and Midhurst and on Peterson. I can say on a side note, a neighbor of theirs has since submitted an application for traffic calming on Peterson, and so Peterson will be in the queue for going through the application in the near future. So.
Brandon, are you done?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, so based off of the Planning Commission's proposal, you can see in the packet what we're proposing, and it is speed cushions at 2 locations. Where it's shown in red there, and there will be asphalt speed cushions with a height not exceeding 3 inches. They'll be signed and marked in accordance with that detail shown there. And again, this would be the last step in the application process before installation. If approved tonight, we would move to installation using our roadway maintenance contractor. And the estimate of the work would be $15,000 in total. And we would do that pending approval, of course, at their earliest convenience.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Do I have any resident comments on this?
No, ma'am.
Do I have any discussion?
Yeah, I have a few. So who put together where the traffic calming spots would go when you sent it to the residents for votes?
Mm-hmm. So that's put together by the traffic team. So we look at a few different constraints, things.
Who's on the traffic team?
I'm sorry, I don't have the list in front of
Well,
me,
not
but.
the names, but the residents.
Yes,
The traffic
it-
team is made up of
Is
residents.
Kingsgate residents?
Correct. Yes, sir. Yes, a combination of staff and residents working together to develop it.
Okay. I mean, I'll give you 2 observations, and the second one's going to nullify the first one. I don't like where these are at all. That's a natural bend in the road that causes you to brake. I mean, these are my stomping grounds. That doesn't, to me, make sense. What makes sense is going further east, back on Red Mill, or going further west up Midhurst, where your highest speeds were 42. I mean, that straightaway is it's a Audubon. However, I guess my second comment is if that many voted for it, I'm clearly not going to, stand up and say something, but I do go back to how was it presented? Were they presented with options of speed humps, further west on Midhurst and, further in another one closer to Red Mill, and those were shot down? Or were they presented with, here's the option, you accept this option, or there's no option? You understand what I'm getting at?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can kind of address all the points. So specifically, they were, it was a yes or no for these 2 locations when the vote went out. So we had nailed it down to this when it actually went to vote. We did look at all those, especially up and down Midhurst. Yeah, there's some straightaways there, like you alluded to, that we did have some very high speeds. A couple things, the requesting residents were specifically at this location.
Right.
So we wanted to ensure that their request was the priority of the actual application itself. There was residents, like you said, that live to the west that said, well, can we do additional speed cushions along all of Midhurst and Red Mill? We decided not to do that, and the biggest reason for that is because there was some opposition to it, and specifically they cited too many, and they didn't want to see 6, 7, 8 speed bumps go in. They would not vote for that. So as a traffic team and based off of the public input, we decided to keep it centralized or localized right there to that intersection where the actual requesting residents were. As far as the speeding goes, you're correct that the speedings were a little bit less. If you look at the 11508 Midhurst and the 609 Red Mill, those are going to be the speeds right there. They were a little bit less than as you head to the west or back down Red Mill a little bit, but they were still above the threshold. What I did tell the residents is that just because we're installing these doesn't preclude traffic calming going in other locations. So if it's well received by the residents as far as the traveling over it and it's effective, there's nothing precluding in the policy an additional or new traffic calming application being submitted to install additional other places in the subdivision.
That's all I got.
Does anyone else have any comments?
No, ma'am.
I'll add a little bit, just because we went through this with Farragut View, and Farragut View was actually, we changed the policy for Farragut View because they were a collector, which is what this is. In 2017, 2018, I think we changed the policy the first time to allow for residential collectors to be to be considered for traffic calming. And when they went through the process, what usually is what is originally proposed is we want to slow traffic all the way down here. So engineer staff will come in and show you all of the traffic calming speed humps through this area that would probably be needed to control traffic through the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And then that's what happened with Farragut View. They said, well, we want it all. And so they were asking for like 9 or something like that. And that's why they lost.
Right.
They could have done 2 on each, and then come back and we reassess what's going on, and they could ask for more later. So having learned that lesson, when I think that, I'm sure that was a conversation with Kingsgate, is if this is, let's do 2, you've got some opposition, let's get this started. This is where the residents are that are actually asking for it. Certainly nobody wants to put a traffic calming speed hump in front of somebody who really doesn't want it. So that's, like Brandon said, that's where that location is. So to me, it's a work in progress for that area. Let's see what those do. I think we have in our traffic calming study, we have to come back a
It's
year?
6-month follow-up.
6 months.
Yes, ma'am, and we
To see what
Yep.
the results are.
Correct, yes, ma'am.
And assess it.
Mhm.
So this is overwhelming. This support to me is overwhelming. So that's heartening that the neighborhood really is asking for this. So does anyone else have anything? All right. With that, I will ask all in favor of approval vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show the request has been approved. Moving on, we're at the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So we have been working as staff. I'm going to give some kudos to them right now. Brandon Tupper's been a huge part of this. Bud McKelvey, who just left a few minutes ago, Sue Stool, Daryl Smith, all of our staff in those departments have been working feverishly over the last couple of years to get McPhee Park open. We've opened up part of it for the tennis courts and the pickleball courts and the basketball court a few months back. But this weekend, we're having a ribbon cutting for McPhee Park. We're having a lot of celebrations on Saturday, 8:30 in the morning. We're going to have a basketball tournament out there. At 10 o'clock will be the ribbon cutting. We'll be out there with games and fun activities till 1. Part of it will be teaching tennis, teaching pickleball, how to play, things like that, so people can come and learn. So we also we're trying to work on our future dog park, and so this month, we're also trying to raise awareness for, we want everybody to bring their dogs out to the park and take a big picture and post it on social media. We're trying to get as much funding from outside sources as possible for that dog park. So this is something that we're working on. So anyway, we hope the public can come, have a great time, and really enjoy the festivities at the park. That's all I had to report.
This is exciting, and it's been a long slog. I think that's a good way of putting it. So we're all excited that my son was visiting, he's been in South Korea for a while, and so he had not been by McPhee Park since it all started. He's like, holy cow, what is that? So he was really impressed with how it's come along. So we're all excited. Thank you, David.
Good.
And with the town attorney not here tonight, I don't think he has a report. So citizen comments.
I have one for you tonight. It's Adam Atherton,
Okay.
801 Andover.
Thank you.
Drafting, you know the drill.
I do, thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Atherton, 801 Andover, in the great town of Farragut. Just following up on the comments earlier, I appreciate the aldermen interacting on it. I do. However, I think you missed my question. So let me read it again just to be clear. Did Town of Farragut BOMA fund new additional turn lanes without public having a chance to be part of the discussion? Second part of the question, where was the opportunity provided for residents and businesses of Farragut to provide comments on the proposal for lane width and turning lane changes at Kingston Pike and Campbell Station? I didn't ask about Campbell Station and the freeway. I'm not aware of any hearings where you sought citizen input on the changes at Kingston Pike and Campbell Station. Perhaps part of the confusion is that Campbell Station is such a mess up and down, but I'm not talking about the interchange with the freeway. I'm talking about narrowing the lanes and adding narrow turning lanes at Kingston Pike and Campbell Station. So if you could answer that at your convenience, I would appreciate it. Secondly, since I have time, to address the comments about Farragut being on record for low-density zoning, that's a joke. The town is fully aware, obviously, anyone that lives here understands that this board here has kind of a fever for medium and high-density housing, and we're all paying the price for that. So, yes, Farragut has a history of low-density housing, and I love Farragut, and I'm sure you do too. I think it's a fantastic town. However, I also think that zoning changes can have unintended consequences and negative consequences, especially when it impacts areas that are already impacted. So this board owns all of the decisions that have been made to add apartments in high-density and medium-density housing. You can't escape that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Atherton. How about you, can you address where we discussed the projects at Campbell Station Road and Kingston Pike?
Sure. I think part of the confusion was that item wasn't on your agenda earlier when it was discussed, but now under public forum, sure. The Kingston Pike Campbell Station Road intersection, that is on the CIP for this coming fiscal year, starting July 1st. We had workshops, budget workshops, where that was discussed during the CIP process. We also I went and talked to the Planning Commission about that project during the Planning Commission meeting. So those were a couple times where there's some public forum. But what happens at that point is it gets funded in the budget, and then during this next fiscal year, staff will work towards getting a design plan for the project. That'll come to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen at that time to discuss that design concept and who's going to do it, how much it's going to cost. People can make comments at that time. We can go through that process. And then after the design is worked through, discussed, is this the right design for us? Then that'll come up for a bid process, which would also be public forum, public comment at that time. So there's several iterations that it goes through to give the public process and time to comment on all these things. And certainly you can always contact the staff and contact the board members if you have concerns about a project. But right now it's really in its infancy. It's a concept. I think it's been in our budget. In our draft budget, it's got some draft concepts in there, but it's really got to be fleshed out quite a bit to get to that point. So that is kind of where we have started the process, get to the budget process, and then eventually we'll come to the board at some point in time for looking at a design proposal.
David, I apologize. Did you mention that this was part of a Board of Mayor and Aldermen CIP workshop?
Yes, ma'am.
And then that CIP has to go to the Planning Commission, which is it's not a workshop, that's held during its regular meeting.
Correct, yes,
Where
ma'am.
that was discussed, so.
Which there's input, right? There's
Yes.
opportunity for
Yes,
residents.
there's
If there's
comment.
questions or comments about any project, it could be during that time. Sometimes there are, sometimes there are not. It just depends on what the questions are.
And just for your clarity, Mr. Atherton, I believe that's required by state law. Our CIP budget has to go through the Planning Commission for approval.
Correct. We present it to the Planning Commission, and then ultimately it's up to the board because that's where the money lays, is with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
So when you look at a CIP, when you're doing the planning, the CIP, all we've funded is the current fiscal year coming up, '23. But you will look at a fiscal Planning Commission, and it has out years. So in this year, all we have funded for that project is right-of-way and design. Construction is funded in the next fiscal year '24. So that's typically how it works. I think what's, and I get it because not too long ago, I was sitting in your seat wondering, how does all this happen? And I got appointed in January of 2016, and we started the budget process, and I had no idea what was going on. And so this is what they do every year: is they have the budget. Staff gets together and handles their part of it in December timeframe. They put together the basics of what they think they're going to need, and then we have our budget retreat, and then we go through a cycle of all the things that we need to do to build a budget, which we just approved on second reading in our last meeting. But one of those things is our CIP, which we're constantly looking at. And if you look at I assume it's online because we have so each CIP has a project page. You can go to that project page. It has generally at least a picture of what we're considering. So that's out there. It's just it's going in and digging through the details. Nothing's hidden. It's just that's how massive the responsibilities are that we have. So, and I appreciate that you have an opinion about high density. We have a land use plan that we're following. I would contend to you there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding about our R1 OSR. Our open space residential overlay is over R1. R1 has a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet that restricts the density to 2.178 units per acre. You reserve 35% to open space. You can build the houses that you've determined. So if you have 100 acres, you have 2.178 units per acre. You can have a maximum of 217 houses. They're built on the 65% of available land. The 35% is reserved for open space. We have a lot of challenging areas where you can't build on this area, so we're reserving it. Brookmere came out to 1.63 units per acre. The Grove at Boyd Station's at 2.15. The Manor at McPhee is at 2.15. So everything out on McPhee Road is coming out in very low density. Yes, we have a mixed-use project at Watt Road, and that has some apartments. We have Biddle Farm, that has 286 apartments. But that was zoned commercial. So in putting the 286 apartments on 20 acres, as opposed to having commercial on 20 acres, we reduce the impact. The apartments have, generate 2,237 trips on 20-plus acres, and the commercial, which is, 62,000 square feet of commercial on 8 acres, generates 4,496 trips. So is it perfect? No. Does it generate traffic? Yes. But it doesn't generate the type of traffic that would have otherwise been there if that entire parcel zoned out or built out commercial, which is what it was zoned for. So there was a reduction in impact there. I guess, I know we can agree to disagree that you see it differently, and that's fine. We have a land use plan that called for some, asking for different types of housing. We've achieved that goal, we've checked that box, we've rewritten, we've addressed our zoning ordinances. There's no vulnerability for apartments to come in unless you actually rezone. And so we've addressed our land use plan. Somebody comes in, somebody wrote me an email a couple of weeks ago saying, hey, I've identified this location for multifamily, and I wrote back to him, our land use plan does not call for any multifamily in the North Ward. So if you have any more questions, reach out to Mark Shipley, and on I went with my day. So we've done what we can to address the needs of our land use plan. We're seeing a lot of development going on at the same time. It's overwhelming. We are dealing with traffic, and we always have. We've worked through connectivity. We are not in this alone. If you put a bubble around town of Farragut, we would be fine. We're not in a bubble. We have traffic coming from Chodo. We have now a 5-lane Concord Road that is feeding traffic up through us. People cannot make a left out on Loop Road. They are forced basically to make a right. That's taken all that traffic. There's only 3,000 average daily trips traveling on Loop Road. Concord Road, the residential portion of Concord Road has 10,000. If we want to take trips off of Concord Road, we need Knox County fixing Loop Road, Woody Drive, putting turn lanes in and putting lights at either end. They've got Canton Hollow funded. If we get Loop Road, Woody Drive taken care of, perhaps we can get TPO funds behind that. That would stand to take a lot of traffic off of our Concord Road, because a lot of people are using it as a cut through to get to Lovell Road. And all those right-hand turn lanes, that means they're not coming to Farragut, they're coming through Farragut. If we can give them an opportunity to go a different way, TDOT has North Shore. The North Shore from the roundabout to I-140 is a state highway. It needs to be addressed. They treat it like a collector, and it's an arterial. There's no turn lanes. If somebody wants to turn left, everybody gets backed up behind them. Same thing with North Shore from the roundabout to Loudoun County. That's a Knox County road. We need help from our partners around us. Loudoun County has an opportunity. They could put something from 70 to, I think it's Buttermilk, that's just west of the Watt Road interchange. That could be a great way instead of all of them feeding up Watt Road. But if we're going to address our traffic issues, it has to be from a regional perspective. We need help from our partners. We have done a lot to connect and distribute traffic, but we can't be the only ones investing in an infrastructure that is impacted by a lot of growth going on, not in our town. They're out in Chodo zoning out at 5 units an acre. So that impacts us. We need their help. And so that's why we're partnering with them on their advanced NOx to address their transportation policy, because that's what they're doing, a regional transportation plan, and we have a seat at the table there, and that's important. And we have a seat at the table at TPO to throw some funding, support some funding in that direction. These are the things we're working on. It's not perfect, but then growth and traffic, that's part of any community is dealing with that. We're dealing with it all over Knox County. So I appreciate the opportunity for you to come and address your concerns and bring them to us. It's a struggle to address everything that goes on next door. It's next to impossible because there's a lot that goes into it.
I want to add one thing. I've talked to several citizens recently, especially with the elections coming up, and a lot of people are confused about the boundaries of our town. You know, what are the boundaries of the town of Farragut? And I've had people complaining about the fact that we put in the apartments on the corner of Snyder Road and Outlet Drive to Tapestry. Well, that's not in the town of Farragut. We had nothing to do with those. I've had people complaining that we're putting apartments in across from Tenova Hospital. That's not in the town of Farragut. I think our boundaries are so, especially on the eastern part of the town. West, it's Loudoun County. South, it's the railroad tracks. And north, it's pretty much the interstate. But it just gets confusing, and people have jumped to the conclusion that we're putting in apartments everywhere. There's 2 examples of big apartment complexes we have had nothing to do with. And the project on corner of Watt Road and Kingston Pike, that's PCD, and I remember voting to approve that with the idea that it was going to be commercial in the front and some residential in the back. And lo and behold, we get the plan, and it's apartments.
Well, you approved the plan.
Well, we approved the plan, but at the same time, after we rezoned it PCD,
No, you approved the PCD as it is. Yeah, you approved it with apartments.
well, not expecting, as small as that piece of property is, I didn't expect 280, or whatever it is, 225 apartments on there. I thought maybe there might be 50 or 60 or something, but, I mean, that's the type of thing that a decision is made, and then you look later and you go, wow, nowhere, they're trying to put a, no, I'm not going into it. I'm not going to discuss it further. But
The only thing I would add.
I've been against apartments from day one here, so.
The only thing I'd add, Madam Vice Mayor, would be that I've had constituents ask me multiple times, I think they get confused with budgeting and funding. And budgeting is simply where we get together, I think we talked about this, and we have an idea and we reserve money for that. Funding comes throughout the year when a design is completed and a project comes to us, then we have a motion and then we fund the program. So to answer your question, no, this BOMA has not funded any kind of project at Kingston Pike and Campbell Station without resident input. Does that make sense? We've budgeted money for it, but we've not funded anything yet except the design. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then also just to demonstrate this BOMA's commitment to lower density development, we inherited a town center, if we all remember, that allowed apartments across all 100% of the acreage. Was it 250 acres, I think? And in that vote, we restricted apartments to about 20% acreage. That's just another example of this BOMA's determination to have as little impact development as we possibly can.
All right. With that, I think that's the end of our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.